It was the first week of Pokemon John's Draft League and there was no shortage of misplays, RNG, and peak Pokemon play. We're covering all the latest news on this week's episode of PokéCenter. First thing to cover is all the matchups from week 1. Over to you, John. Wow, thanks, John. The first matchup to cover is between the veteran Brionac and the rookie Salroc. The first play lets you know immediately what kind of day it would be as Cinderace misses the Will-O-Wisp and falls asleep on the very first turn. This results in Swampert getting in for free and being able to set up some hazards which would prove to be the difference maker even though you can't see the health bar. Luck would continue to be on Sal's side as Mandibuzz misses the 90% Toxic, which results in yet another free switch. But it's not over yet because Sal's running the almost never used Confuse Ray that immediately pays off as Cinderace wakes up disoriented, hitting themselves in the face. This leads to yet another free switch where the chip damage from earlier results in Ninetales being able to KO the very bulky Alomomola for the first KO of the day. After trying to regain some momentum with Cinderace burning Swampert, RNG would prove to be on Sal's side as Swampert lands the critical hit Earthquake that definitely mattered to get the KO. A burnt Swampert lets Baxcalibur come in to double dance and Earthquake Scissor for a disappointing amount of damage. You'd think a base 147 attack at +2 would get the one shot, but Scissor's Technician boosted priority bullet punches are too much for Baxcalibur to withstand. Hippowdon comes out to nearly one-shot Blissey as Sal makes the Terrestrialization play of the week to boost the power of Fling and poison the Hippowdon with a Poison Barb. I've never seen that in my life, and although I can't see the health bar, I am told that this damage made all the difference along with the chip damage from poison. So after taking the first KO of the season for Brionac, their Hippowdon retreats into Samurott, who takes a Blizzard and freezes. They of course don't thaw the next turn, which allows for Ninetales to put together a string of KOs. One on Samurott with the Moonblast and both Hippowdon and Mandibuzz with the Blizzard. What a performance from Ninetales and what a strategy to deal with that bulky Hippowdon, but sometimes RNG just isn't on your side. Best of luck to you next week, Brionac. Moving over to the next Slaughterfest, that was kind of mean. It was Blake versus PokéBound for the showdown of the century. PokéBound leads with Empoleon and is immediately on the back foot staring down Galvantula. But even though PokéBound had an electric immunity, he made his first mistake by switching his Talonflame into an oncoming Thunder Wave. This led to a slippery slope that ultimately ended up costing him his Talonflame as well as getting his Empoleon paralyzed and a layer of sticky webs up, which lowers his team's speed by 1 stage on switch-in. His indecisiveness seemed to continue as he switched back and forth between Empoleon and Indeedee, which allowed Galvantula to take their second KO of the match with another Thunder, which is 97.5% accurate of course due to their Compound Eyes ability. Hawlucha would then make use of the Fallen Ally Psychic Terrain to proc their Psychic Seed to boost their special defense. Not only did this guarantee them to move first with their Unburden ability, but it doubled the power of Acrobatics to bring Galvantula down to their Focus Sash. Side note, this is a recreation, so it's not going to be perfect. But even with this special defense boost, Galvantula proved to be too powerful and took yet another one-hit KO with a Thunder. Delphox came in and terrestrialized into the Fairy type while also taking a Volt Switch as they flamethrowered into the newest opponent, Garganical. PokéBound tried to regain momentum and switched into Empoleon and accidentally took a Salt Cure that now does huge passive damage, being both a water and a steel type. But the plus side is that with the sticky webs lowering Empoleon's speed on entry, he actually gets a +2 special attack boost due to their competitive ability. But Empoleon still underspeeds due to the Thunder Wave from earlier and has to take a massive body press before being able to get PokéBound's first KO of the season with the Chilling Water. Armarouge makes their debut next, and perhaps the nerves got to PokéBound a little bit because he sends in his Torterra on an Armor Cannon that gets the instant one-hit knockout. And this starts the avalanche that allowed Armarouge to take the last 3 KOs of the match. With the webs lowering PokéBound's speed on entry and Delphox unable to resist Armor Cannons as a now Fairy type, Armarouge is able to KO the rest of his team. It was a well-fought match by both trainers, but Blake takes the lead not only with a victory, but a +5 differential. That's going to be tough to beat. The next battle to talk about is between the Porygon lovers. I mean, Intel and System errored. Glamora came out first to poison the Ursaluna and possibly lay out Toxic Spikes, but Ursaluna just wasn't having it. Not only did they bring them down to their Focus Sash with an Earth Power, but they were packing their priority move Vacuum Wave to outspeed and KO the very next turn. What attack! Abomasnow comes out next to set up the Snow and an Aurora Veil, which allowed them to take the Blood Moon like a champ. Kinda like a champ. And then KO that thing with a Blizzard. Meowscarada comes out next to do some huge chip damage with a Protean boosted U-turn and wisely goes into Milotic to take a Blizzard. Seemed like a pretty good matchup with Grass against Water, but System goes into Klefki as Milotic boosts their special defense with the Light Screen and their physical defense by being burnt and their Marvel Scale ability. Also prevents freeze shenanigans. I wonder if that matters. A few stall turns go by, and after resetting up the Light Screen after Aurora Veil goes down, Rotom Frost comes in to just Volt Switch back into Klefki. But then Milotic flip turns into Excadrill for the advantage. Or so maybe they thought. Because Klefki knew they were going down, so with one last dying wish, they set up a Reflect before taking an Earthquake that might prove to be pivotal. Both trainers then reposition into Scale Shot Moxie Crocodile and Poison Heal Gliscor. Unexcitedly, the Gliscor ends up winning the stall battle with a dual wing beat. But of course, the GOAT Primarina comes out to put an end to this monstrosity by landing the 70% accurate Blizzard. This brings out Meowscarada, and wisely not wanting to get rid of his best Pokemon, System chooses to sack his Abomasnow after setting up the Snow one last time. And the item of the week, in my opinion, has to go to Abomasnow for setting up the Snow one last time with the Icy Rock to last for another full 8 turns. Because this not only allows his Choice Scarf Rotom to land a 100% accurate Blizzard to KO the cat, but it also allows them to survive an incoming Iron Head from Intel's Exegil, which results in a Blizzard that freezes. That's the second freeze this week, and of course they don't thaw out and get taken down by another Blizzard. Intel wouldn't be able to recover from this because after both trainers attempt to outposition each other, Primarina ends up taking down Dragapult with a Moonblast, followed by Milotic with an Energy Ball. This then of course makes Primarina the MVP of the match with 3 KOs and leaves System Arid with a +2 differential. But now let's check out the game of the week with Pokemon John versus awesomeAD. I don't know if it's actually the game of the week, but it's my game. I lead with Kilowattrel against his Metagross. I decide to stick to my strategy and Volt Switch Metagross to get some chip damage and bring out my Choice Scarf Basculegion. He did punish me with an Agility, which allowed him to get off his Psychic things, but I was able to get the last laugh by getting the KO with the Last Respects, which I'm just now realizing that move is banned and I won't be using it again. Contrary Superior comes out, so I send out Arboliva to tank the incoming Leaf Storm reasonably well, but also accidentally boost the power of his Grass type moves with Grassy Terrain. After some stall shenanigans, I decide my only way out is to sack my Politoed, who does manage to set up the rain before going down, and this allows my Kilowattrel to come out, outspeed, and take the KO with a now 100% accurate Hurricane. Magnezone comes out now, so I reposition into Sneasler with the Volt Switch as he sets up what I believe to be a useless Sight Screen since I'm a physical attacker. And I feel even more on top as I'm able to set up a Sword Stance as he just switches out into Charizard. But Choice Scarf Charizard manages to humble me immediately with an Air Slash, but at least he didn't get the flinch or the KO, so a Dire Claw gets a KO for my team. King Gambit comes out now, so I correctly call the Sucker Punch and get a free switch into our Chaladon. Not wanting to take a Body Press, he switches into Gastron, who actually takes a disappointing amount of damage from a Draco Meteor through the Light Screen that actually ended up mattering. But I was able to eject pack myself out of that situation into Arboliva to gain yet a bigger advantage. Or so I thought until he terrestrialized into the Grass type. It seemed as though we both got impatient in the stall battle, so we traded our mons for Basculegion and Magnezone. I then make the first big blunder of the match by using the illegal Last Respects for some okay damage, I guess, as I knew the better play would have been going into my Volt Absorb Kilowattrel instead of sacking my Basculegion into a Volt Switch. This then snowballs into me making yet another blunder by sending in Sneasler and talking myself out of using Dire Claw that would have gotten the KO and is now Grass type Gastrodon. But instead I use Close Combat to do some decent damage but end up losing my Sneasler to an Earth Power. Luck does go my way though as I land the 70% accurate Hurricane to end that thing immediately. But then everything goes sideways as a disconnect happens and Magnezone lives on just 4 HP on a Volt Switch. Good thing the Grassy Terrain played out in my favor this week, right? We then met up to talk about our remaining turns, and as it turns out his Magnezone would have set up a game-winning Reflect that wouldn't have let itself survive a Body Press, but it would have allowed his King Gambit to survive multiple quad-effective Body Presses as he sets up a Sword Stance to sweep the rest of my team. Even my Terra Fairy Arboliva didn't even stand a chance. This regretfully makes King Gambit the MVP of the match and allows awesomeAD to take the 4th seed of the playoffs in the current playoff rankings. It's only the first week of the season, but differential could play out to be a huge factor when playoffs begin in just 6 short weeks from now. But before we get into the MVP race, I gathered a list of top plays for us to go over. The best sacrifice had to be System Arid sacrificing his beloved Abomasnow to set up the Snow one last time, because this resulted in his Rotom living the Iron Head 100% accurate Blizzards and of course getting that lucky freeze. The best play in my opinion had to be awesomeAD setting up the Reflect at the end of the game. Although I'm still a bit salty from our matchup, I'll admit that was the difference between his King Gambit being able to set up a Sword Stance and reverse sweep my team. Best performance this week in my opinion had to be Galvantula. KOs aren't everything, of course they help, but not only were they able to take 3 KOs with a 97% accurate Thunder, but they were also able to set up Sicky Webs, which allowed their ally Armarouge to outspeed and pick up 3 KOs to end the battle. Also resulted in losing his Garganacl to a +2 competitive Empoleon, but that's besides the point. And last but not least, we're gonna go over the biggest blunder of the week. And I think it's a tie. It either had to go to myself for the snowball of not flip turning and sacking my Basculegion, and then not taking the KO with a Dire Claw when it was right in front of me. Literally turns the tide of battle if I didn't take either one of these 2 mistakes. Or it has to be PokéBound's indecisive switching, which resulted in Talonflame going down for no reason. One of my favorite Pokemon literally sacrificed for nothing. And here are the results for the MVP race so far. Salroc's Alolan Ninetales Mythicals is in first place right now with an impressive 4 KOs and no deaths, but Premium Arena is hot on her heels. And that's it for Draft League news this week, but I'm considering a twist. And I need your help deciding between one of these two twists. Should we do a double battle in one of these next 6 weeks before playoffs, or should we make the coaches use the other 6 Pokemon they've drafted the following week, resulting in no repeats? Let me know down below. If you liked the video, please make sure to leave a like, and if you want to stay up to date on all the latest Draft League news, make sure to hit that sub button. But until then, I'll see you next week for PokéCenter Week 2.